welcome to the second annual Glass Art Symposium 2021. I am so happy that you're here. You're about to experience an amazing event for the next 7 days. Can you believe it? Yes, that's right. You heard me. 7 days of awesome goodness, of glass and all that. It's going to be fantastic. So let me tell you how this is going to work, answer some questions that you might have, and get you ready and invigorated for this wonderful week. So this is how it works. This symposium begins today, Friday, and it happens until the following Friday. Every day from today on to next Friday, there will be multiple sessions for you to enjoy and learn from and be inspired from. So today, we begin with Cheryl Peterson. She's going to be live right here on set with us, and she's going to show you how to do stunning stained glass orchids. It's going to be amazing. After Cheryl's session, we will then release the 2 other daily sessions, which are from Nilawan, Suwan Sethian. Forgive me, Nilawan, if I mispronounced your name. But she's going to show you, the title of her session is It's a Bug Life. Yes. And then after Nilawan, there is Cheryl Ferens, and Cheryl is going to show you fusing glass and clay. Oh my, yes, it's going to be amazing. So these are the 3 daily sessions for today. So at the completion of this current live session, the other 2 sessions will be released and you will be able to watch those workshops. Now, notice below the video on each of those sessions, it tells you when the meet and greet with the instructor is. So, for example, Nilawan, the meet and greet with Nilawan is 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, she will be in the chat with you, where you can ask your questions, interact with Nilawan, find out more about her, and all of that. And then Cheryl Ferens will be, the meet and greet with Cheryl Ferens in the chat will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time as well. So each day, so today will be a wonderful example of how each day is going to be. Each day we're going to have a live session in the morning, and then the additional workshops after the live session. With the exception of Saturday and Sunday, you will see the different sessions for those days and the meet and greets with the artists. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way on to Friday, we have a phenomenal lineup of artists here ready to show you their work and how they do it. So I want to bring your attention to the schedule. On the page where you're watching, there's a menu on the top right-hand corner. That menu is critical because it will guide you throughout the symposium. So the one that says watch live is where we're at right now. That will show you, will open up the door to this amazing world of glass, and you will see the daily sessions. After that, you will see another button called schedule. That's where you click to see the lineup. So if you want to know who's on for today, click on schedule. If you want to know who's on next Wednesday, click on schedule. There you will meet the artist. You will see their photo, the title of their workshop, the description, and the project photo. And then, of course, there is the option for you to purchase all of the workshops. And you will see that on the page that says buy the workshops. So click there to find out. Essentially, and I'll talk about it later, but essentially for one small fee, you get all of the sessions. So check that out. And then lastly, there is an FAQs page. I know no one ever wants to click there because it's boring, but I bet a lot of your questions are answered on that page. So if you have any questions about how long each workshop lasts, about how much access do you have, is it free, is it not, all of those things are in the FAQs page. So I highly encourage you to check it out. Of course, if you have any other burning questions that are like urgent and you need to know the answer right now, there is a chat. There's a little box on the left-hand side of the website that says, need help, speak to us. Click there, and one of our customer service agents will be able to assist you. Just be patient. We have the whole world watching, and you might have to wait a little. So check the FAQs page first, but of course, reach out to us should you need to, okay? And of course, if you have any questions like that, they are there for you. We're here for you. Now, the chat, it is so much fun. There's a whole community essentially in and of itself right there in the chat next to each session. When you have questions, especially now when we're live, if you have questions, use the chat box, post it in there, ask your questions. I will relay them over to Cheryl and she will get those questions answered. But remember, the whole world is watching. Yes, there's a wonderful global community of glass artists. So if it says the chat is full, here's what you do. Take a deep breath. Don't panic. and refresh the page. Just refresh the page that you're watching. Actually, anytime you have any type of glitch, just refresh the page. By refreshing the page, it will most likely work and allow you to get back into the chat. If it's super full, when you refresh the page, if someone dropped off, you'll take their spot and you'll be able to join in. Hopefully, you won't encounter that issue. But if you do, if the chat is full, just be happy. It's more glass artists together, and then refresh the page and you should be good to go, okay? All right. I believe, enough of me talking, right? I believe I have covered all of the announcements. If not, we'll cover them later. How about now? It is time for us to party. Let's get this party started. Woo! Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Very nice. We now begin session number 1, workshop 1 of the Glass Art Symposium 2021 with Cheryl Peterson, stunning stained glass orchids. Welcome, Cheryl.
I am so happy to be here, and I can't believe you made me dance.
Yeah, cool dance moves.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're going to make stained glass orchids, and they're not as hard as you might think. That's the beauty of these. They look incredible, but once I show you how to put together, you'll go, that's so easy.
That's it?
Exactly. So, you know, once the magic is ruined for you, there's really...
And I mean, look at this. I can see that as you're talking, I'm just seeing it on screen. This is the example of what we're going to create together.
Right, exactly.
And look at how gorgeous that is.
Yeah. And okay, so there's a story here.
Ooh, tell me.
When I was trying to decide what I wanted to demonstrate for the symposium, it's like, I'll do a glass orchid because they're very, very popular and they're absolutely beautiful and they don't die. So I bought an orchid, an actual orchid, and I took one of the flowers and I pulled it apart and made this orchid, which stunning. And there are people who literally come into my house and have no idea that it's not real. So then I thought, well, I need to start prepping for the course, and the flowers had all died off, it had rebloomed and come back larger. So I made this orchid, and I think it's even prettier.
Ooh, yeah.
So, you know, and this is kind of how my process works. I create the first one, and then as I go, I solve problems and figure out how to improve. And so
Well,
this is where we're at.
Isn't that what we do as artists?
Exactly. It's a constant process. And there are things that I have made, you know, dozens of, that each time I make them, I'm still improving. Mm-hmm. So you just find out what works for you. I saw a quote online that said something about, you know, when you learn to do something, learn all the rules so you know which ones you can break.
Yes, that's right.
And that's the essence of art for me. So I want to show you just how I went about making the pattern.
Ooh, I want to see that.
And testing it. Okay, so I told you that, yes.
May I really
Please,
quickly
jump in.
Really quickly. So you heard me mention that we've got folks from all over the world watching,
Yes.
right? Do you want to know who's here with us?
Absolutely.
This way you feel more at home.
We're just close friends here.
Yes, that's right. So we're welcoming folks from US, UK, Canada, Netherlands, Spain, Ireland, Philippines, Germany, Curaçao, Argentina, and Belgium, and Denmark, and Hungary, and Israel, and Slovakia, and South Africa, and Malaysia.
Wow.
And France, and India, and Mexico, and Sweden, and Seychelles, and Norway, and Thailand, and Macedonia, and Romania. Thank you for being here.
But wait, there's more. No. Wow,
awesome.
That's incredible. Thank you all for tuning in. And
Yes.
I'm excited to be the person kicking off the symposium.
That's right.
It's kind of exciting.
Kind of cool, huh?
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to talk about my process.
Patterns.
How I made the pattern. Like I said, I bought an orchid. I ripped up the poor little flower, and then I made it out. You know, I traced the flower petals onto just cardstock, and then taped it together to see if I could figure out just how it would work. So here you can see my paper model. And I do paper models on a lot of projects, not everything, it just depends. But when I'm doing a three-dimensional project, I will make it out of paper first, just to test it out. And that way I can make all the changes I want before I start committing myself to glass. So here's my paper model. Yay. Now, here's the pattern that is in the student section. What we have here is everything you need for one flower. And let's see, okay, these pieces. And then we've got a blossom that has, a blossom that hasn't bloomed, so a bud, and then leaves. And in the pattern that you'll get, there are actually 2 different sized leaves. And so that's what we're going to do. And the beauty of this is, we'll be using all of the same tools that you normally use when you're doing stained glass, but we don't need the pattern shears. And those are the shears that have the gap in them and are kind of hard to cut with, that everybody hates. We're going to use just regular scissors to cut out our pattern. And I will probably address different, all of the things that we'll be using as I go, rather than do the whole overview and then start. So what you need to do is, and this just prints out on a normal letter size piece of paper, and print as many for the flowers you're going to make. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind is there is a weight factor. These glass flowers are heavy. So when I made this one, my little pot is weighted, and I put them in at first and it tipped because they are so heavy. It's a very, very top-heavy project.
I want to know what you did to solve that.
Oh,
That's coming up.
That'll come up, because I will be demonstrating how to make the base, the planter, to put everything in.
So just reiterating what you said, for these patterns, you don't need the pattern shears. You can cut with just regular scissors.
Just regular scissors.
Right on the line. Do you go inside of the line, outside?
Just right on the line. Right on the line. Because we're not making any allowances for putting pieces right up next to each other. We're not butting them in any way. We're just building them like if you've built succulents, it's very, very similar process. So I'll be showing you how to put them together and how to make them as strong as possible. One word warning, these are fairly delicate. When I was packing them up to bring them here, like, okay, I've got to find just the right box, and I have to cushion them just the right way and hope they don't tip over. But they're so pretty that, once you display them, you'll never have to move them. All you have to do is dust them. And when you're choosing your glass, don't let yourself be ruled by what you see in the natural world. Like, these are more natural looking, but the first ones I made with the swirly blue glass, believe it or not, the orchid I bought had been dyed. So they injected dye into the stem, and it was beautiful, blues and violets, and that's why I chose to use this opal art glass to do our orchids with. They may not appear that way in nature, but they're very pretty. So you could use any color combination you want. You could even get crazy and outrageous. And this is also a great project if you have a lot of little scraps, tiny pieces, maybe of similar colors, or, enough to build a whole flower with. You can use up a lot of scrap with a project like this. Okay, so we have everything cut out for one flower. And now I've got 2 sizes of buds. We'll cut those out. If you're doing several flowers at one time, I will sort my pattern pieces out in envelopes. So you can, if you want to keep them separate, I just use small envelopes to keep things organized while I'm working on them. And if you don't cut exactly on the line, that's okay, because like I said, there are really only a couple of places where we're butting glass up against each other. So in the buds and in the leaves. The straight line in the buds and leaves is the only place where the glass will butt up against each other, like a normal stained glass project. Now, there are people, unlike myself, who prefer to trace the pattern right onto the glass. If that's the way you work, then you can just lay this little sheet of paper on your light table and trace your pattern. Interesting story, I've never done it that way, but a friend's mother passed away and hadn't finished making a lamp project. So I got all of the pieces. She had 2 panels already completed. It was a 6-panel lamp, but everything else still needed to be cut up. And she had traced it all on. There were no pattern pieces. It was all traced out already. So I did all the cutting, thinking that her tracing lines were where I needed to cut, and it turns out she drew way outside of the pattern lines, and so I was doing a lot of grinding, and I hate to have to do a lot of grinding with a project. All right, so now we have our pieces, and we're going to use our glass. Now, I have this glass sitting on a heating pad. It's just a regular old heating pad. It's inexpensive, not anything very cool. Let's see if I can slide it over here and get a good look at it. So this is the heating pad, and I've had the glass warming up on it. It's a little bit cold in the studio today, and warm glass cuts better than cold glass. So I've warmed up the glass a little bit, and there are people who say, you know, it doesn't matter. Well, I found that it does matter. It makes a difference. So I'm going to start with my smaller piece. I've got some little chunks, and I'll let the green keep warming up for a minute. Now I use, let's see, okay, here we go. I just use regular glue stick. This is washable glue stick. And when you're when you're putting your pattern on your glass, keep in mind, if it's a textured glass, you want to put it on the smooth side. Now, it doesn't matter, because all of these pieces have an identical mate. We don't have to lay them upside down so that we would see them properly. We can lay them out right side up, and it's not going to cause a problem in this case. So if you've got textured glass, lay your pattern out on the smooth side, but you don't have to worry about flipping your pattern over. So technically, this is kind of a really easy project. Not a lot of worrying about textures and laying out your pattern. Basically, just cut and go. Okay, let's see. Ooh, can I do that? I'm going to try and see if I can fit these all on the same piece of glass. Put your pieces of pattern as close together as you're comfortable with. It all depends on how well your glass cuts, if you'll be able to successfully cut your pieces when they're close together.
Laura wants to know, when using the heating pad, do you set at low, medium, or high?
I would just set it at low. The glass doesn't need to be hot. It just needs to not be really cold. You know, and as the weather changes, if like me, you have your studio is in the basement, then as the weather cools down, it makes a difference. You'll notice that your soldering iron doesn't flow as well. So you have to adjust your heat on your soldering iron, warm up your glass, and there are all sorts of things that need to be done. Okay, not quite done yet. Now I'm going to lay out my buds, if I can pick up the pieces. It is a little chilly today in the studio, and my hands aren't functioning quite right.
I love it that you use the actual petals to get your pattern.
Oh yeah. All right, now with this one, I put them almost butted up against each other. I left a tiny little gap, and that's going to be the gap where I'll cut. All right, and now, this is the leaf glass. Now, if you look at this, you might be able to see just how heavily textured it is, which is going to look really cool for a leaf. But it will be hard to cut, so you don't want to cut on this textured side. I mean, even the smooth side has a texture. And look, here's when they made the glass. I think I probably got this for a discount. There's an imperfection in the glass when they made it, in the process of making it. But this is the smoothest side. This is the side we're going to cut. All right. So now, let's get down to cutting. Shall we?
Yeah.
All right, there are many types of glass cutters. I prefer the pen type. That's how they describe this one. It's this pen type glass cutter. I was a graphic designer for a long time, and I used a craft knife a lot. So this motion is way more comfortable for me. And there's the pistol grip kind, or there's a couple of. Do you have a pistol grip here?
There's this guy.
Oh, the old-fashioned kind.
Yep.
I have a bunch of these, and I still haven't tried it yet. Have you used this one?
I mean, yeah.
Yes and no. Okay. Well, I haven't learned how to use this one, so we're not going to talk about that.
I like the one that has a little support for your hand.
Yes,
that's smaller.
there is
That's
some
the
that
one
has
I
like a
use.
little T across here,
Yeah.
and it's a support for your hand. This is my favorite.
All
I've been
right.
doing a lot of cutting because I've been getting ready for fairs and festivals. And
Let's
so,
see your cutting skills. We've got just the whole world watching.
Okay, no pressure, no pressure. So basically what you want to do is cut things down and separate them apart. And now I'm using running pliers right now.
And of course, don't forget, safety first.
Safety glasses. Now you're saying you're not wearing safety glasses. Well, this is pretty good coverage on my reading glasses. So you could double up if you wanted to, but I haven't run into a problem yet. I mean, something can always happen. And keep in mind, white glass is the hardest to cut, and this glass has a lot of white in it. So just keep in mind, because it's harder, it's less viscous than the other glasses. It's science. Anyway, so...
Science.
Yeah, exactly. Science. Need I say more? So the glass with a lot of white in the design or in the color is going to be harder to cut. Now, you saw that I did almost an S curve here. We're going to try and be sneaky and just gently squeeze. Look at that. Normally, I'd hope something could go wrong so that we could talk about what went wrong.
So if something goes wrong, I know it was intentional.
Right? Exactly.
Tell me about this work surface you've got.
Okay, so this is just a piece of sheetrock or wallboard. I think this piece is 1/2 inch thick. It comes in different thicknesses. I just buy a big full sheet and then start cutting pieces off and using them that way. When it gets too dirty or too, you can see I've got a lot of wear and tear in this spot right here. You can just throw it away and start with another one.
And it's heat resistant?
It is. It is actually fire retardant.
Ooh.
Well, not fire retardant, fire resistant. So if you're working with, heat and you accidentally drop like your soldering iron on the surface, it won't start a fire. And I've got a ton of burn marks on this, and not so many on this one. This must be a new one. But if the hot solder hits it, it won't start a fire. So safety first. All right, now because this is the hardest piece to cut, this is the one I'll demonstrate on. Yay!
All right.
Okay, you want to...
Give me the skinny.
Okay, what we're doing is we're slowly working out. So inside curves are your hardest curves to cut. All right? Straight lines, a breeze. Outside curves, pretty easy. Inside curves can make you hate life. So what we're going to do, and I'll go slow. Normally I would do several cuts and then ease out the glass, but in this case I will ease the glass out with each cut. And don't try to be a hero. You can actually finish off by grinding. We're not going to cut all the way into that because that is quite a tight curve. We're not going to cut all the way into it. We're going to go pretty far, but we'll grind the rest of the way.
Don't be a hero. I like that.
Don't ever be a hero. And you can tell when you're starting to get tired because the glass will start to hate you.
It'll make you feel humble real quick.
It will humble you. And if the glass stops cutting the way you need it to, just walk away for a day. Come back tomorrow. Unless you're under the gun for an assignment. And then if you've got a commission, you can't always do that. But if you can walk away, just walk away. Give the glass a chance to think about things.
But you tackle it in chunks, literally,
just in
parts.
little chunks, yeah. You don't have to be in a hurry. And you can see how outside curves are fairly easy to cut. You might get little nips like that, but you can just come in with your grosers. And remember with your grosers, they should always be smiling.
Hang on, I want them to see this from the front so they can see the smile.
There we go.
No, point it towards Jessica. Yeah, there we go.
There
So
we
you
go.
can get a nice close shot on that.
So you can see it's always smiling.
See the little smiley face?
This is the little smile.
Whoop.
So that's the proper way to use your grosers. And when I'm doing a lot of cutting, I like to break it up. So I will cut for an hour, and I'll grind for an hour, and then I'll come back and cut for an hour. And the reason, other than saving my hands, is that will also save wear and tear on your grinder. If you give it a little break every hour or so to just kind of cool down, then it all makes your life easier. Okay, so another pair of grosers that you will find convenient. These are a 4 millimeter. You can see they're a lot narrower than the one I was using. These are 4 millimeters. And they're for getting into these tight spaces. If you have a tight space, you can use your little grosers.
Okay, wait. Don't move on to the next piece.
Well, this
was a hard one.
cut another one just exactly like it.
But show off a little. I mean, look at that. We did it.
Check me out. Hardly any grinding.
Just a little grinding, right?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Looks like left lung.
Kidneys.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Kidneys. Yay. All right, now the rest, this is the hardest piece to cut. The rest of them, pretty much a breeze. You have straight lines and gentle curves.
So a question from Sandy. What is the little back stitch you do at the beginning edge?
Generally a mistake.
Okay.
Okay, so if I get too close to the edge and when I push down, it will go backwards. That's unintentional. So what you want to do, the most important thing is consistent pressure from start to finish. So start at your edge, and that's why I do that back thing accidentally, is because I've got it too close to the edge. So don't do that. Don't do what I'm doing. All right. Now, the secret about getting the grocers to work, put them right up on your score line and wiggle and pull away. So I'm just tight. There's a tiny wiggle going on. I'm exaggerating it with my hand so you can see this is the wiggle. So it's wiggle and pull. And when you're cleaning, if you've got a lot of little shards and stuff on your cutting surface, don't wipe them off
Resist
with
the
your
urge.
hand. Use a... See,
Ta-da!
I didn't pack mine because I knew you had one here. Use a brush to clean your surface when you're cutting. You don't want little shards of glass underneath the piece you're trying to cut, and you don't want to rub your hand across the glass because you'll end up with glass slivers and nothing hurts more.
Willie wants to know, do you ever use the plastic mat that's a grid that allows the chips to fall below the surface? I can't remember the name.
I picked up one of those. I bought out, a glass artist was getting out of the business, and I bought out her supplies and got one of those. And I'd never had one before. And the thing is, the glass is so rigid. This is not rigid. It has a bit of give, so I like cutting glass on. My hands don't get as tired because there's a bit of give here, rather than that rigid grid. And if the grid works for you, that's great because, like you said, the glass does fall down into the little holes and then you just tip it out. But this is way more comfortable on my hands if you're doing a lot of glass cutting. That's what you want to do, is whatever's going to be most comfortable for you. So because we're doing this all in one day, I'm not going to cut all these pieces out. I'm just going to give you like examples. Now, secret with your running pliers, if you've got a piece like this, you can use your running pliers to finish the cut. See, I'm going to use my regular. There we go. Okay, and now let's cut the leaf. I'm going to demonstrate cutting the leaf. We'll put all these over to the side. It's awesome. Every time I do a demonstration, I end up with enough to make like 2 more projects. And if you're cutting, breaking apart glass, this is the safe way to hold the glass between, make a fist, like a thumbs up, put your index fingers right underneath the score, and then just snap it. Now, if you don't think you can cut a straight line that far, you can go ahead and use a ruler. Keeping in mind, there's a tiny bit, you've got to make allowances for the gap, where the wheel is on your cutter. And just break that apart. Really, all of these pieces are easy to cut, except that little inconsistency in the glass might cause us problems. All of these pieces are easy to cut because they're either straight lines or really gentle outside curves. It's only the little kidney shapes.
Kidneys.
Mm-hmm. Kidneys are the only real challenge. And we want that little flap right there because that's really important for anchoring that leaf into that petal into the flower. This to me sounded like a botanist. Okay, let's hope that doesn't cause a problem. Oh, see, we got a bad cut there.
And I mean on the not on the kidneys.
It's okay.
This
So
one was intentional.
This one was actually not intentional, but it's because of the flaw in the glass.
Yes.
I didn't get a good score because every time I hit that flaw, my cutter got hung up. So we didn't get a good score, and that's why that didn't break properly.
So in this case, what do you do? Do you make do with the piece that you got, or do you just cut a new one?
Just cut a new one. Okay, so I can't find my Band-Aids. Do you have some here?
Yes, we do have some here. Ready for you.
I know that I'm doing a good job if I shed a little. Oh, here's my Band-Aids. They're right here.
Oh, good.
I had them close by. All right. Whew. Always keep. I've got several boxes in my studio at various locations. Because if I cut myself, I don't necessarily have time to go, fine.
What do you?
Honestly. Okay, first aid here. If it starts bleeding and suddenly you don't know where you've cut yourself. All right. I was doing a restoration project, and in the process of tearing apart this ancient antique glass, I kept cutting myself. There was so much blood on my pattern, just because every time I'd break a piece of glass, it would bite me like that. So, jokingly, we have a theory, some of the other glass artists and I, that there are a certain number of Band-Aids that you can use until you have to stop cutting for the day. And three is the number we've come up with. Okay, you can see, let's see if I can
hear the little...
You could hear it where it got hung up. Let's see if we can deal with that. So what I did was I actually scored right up that indentation. Oh, no.
Nope.
Now, okay, on the pattern there is a smaller leaf. You could possibly use this piece of glass for the smaller leaf, but you'll just want to peel up your pattern piece, and lay it out
somewhere else
on another piece of glass. But you could still use this one for the smaller leaf. So it's not a total waste. Not a complete loss. All right. Because we're constrained for time today, I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to show you how to grind these.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see that. Tell me about the grinder. Anything specific I need to know?
Well, this is my grinder, not my oldest one. I've got a grinder that's 15 years old. And let's see. We'll get it prepped for you. I'm going to end up with grinder dust on my sweater. Okay.
Oh, wait. I have a little...
an apron.
I have a little apron from our sponsor.
The critical part is done.
So no?
I think we're fine.
Okay.
Okay. So, seriously, I was organized before we started all of this. I have a little container that I would normally keep water in. Wait, there it is. How embarrassing. All right, so you can see I've got my grinder cleaned up. A lot of people will clean their grinder every single day. I've also heard that if you don't ever clean your grinder, it starts to smell like feet. Which I have never experienced, but you'll know when you start getting residue of grind glass, so it's like grinder mud, will start to build up, and it will affect your grinding. So periodically stop, drain the water, and clean out the grinder mud.
And when do you know you've added enough water?
This specific, it has this little spillway. So you just fill it up until it gets to the spillway but doesn't spill out. And lock the grid in place. And this is the handy sponge. This is what delivers the water to the grinder nib. And what it does is, let's pour a little water over that to get it started. What it does is, it's a lubricant. Water is the lubricant for this grinder. Don't grind your glass with a rotary tool. You know, you can drill it, but it's got to be underwater. Water's got to be the lubricant you're using. I don't use any additional lubricants or coolants or anything like that in my grinder. I just water, just plain straight water. And then I have a little tub next to me that I'll fill with water, and generally it's warm water with a tiny bit of dish soap in it. And I'll show you what that's for. Okay, we ready? All right.
We're ready.
Now, if you're using your fingers, this little pushing thing, your fingers get soft, you can start cutting yourself on your glass. So it's easier if you have something to push with. This is just a leftover piece of dowel. And I've used something like this forever, since I started doing glass. All right, ready?
Yes.
The nib is diamond encrusted. Technically, you wouldn't hurt yourself if your fingers got to it, but you'd get a nice manicure. Now, can we see? Yeah, you've got a good shot above.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
And they can come in close.
Okay, two things to keep in mind. There are chunks of glass flipping back up at me. So after a grinding session, your face will be sparkly. You can wear a mask if you want to, if that would make you more comfortable. I don't. Probably should. Anyway, now, this little indentation right here is a deeper curve than what the big grinder head will grind.
So now what?
So I have this tiny little grinder head, and all it does,
you attach it on top?
it just screws in most grinders, not all of them. There is a little hole in the top of where your regular nib attaches to. But remember, we have to use water. Okay. So always have a sponge.
Because the little sponge doesn't deliver the water to the top of the thing.
Correct. So you've got to manually do it. Always have an extra sponge handy.
Ah, but look at that. Little water, little water.
Okay, so now we have,
Perfect kidneys.
look at that.
Oh yeah, look at that. Good job.
That's beautiful.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And then I will just put it in my water to soak, and that will soak the pattern piece off and kind of clean it. So you're actually killing two birds with one stone. If you were doing a panel and you needed to number your pieces, I will pull it out before the pattern slides off, and then I'll take the pattern piece off, dry it, and then mark it with a little marking pen to what number the pattern is. So, but it doesn't matter which pattern piece we're working on, so we don't have to number them. If you find yourself pushing really hard for your grinder to work, it means that you've worn off the diamond coating at that spot on your grinder, and you'll want to adjust it.
Oh.
So grinder nibs always come with a little Allen wrench, which is so little, I'm having a hard time grabbing it. Okay. They always come with a little Allen wrench, and this is how you change the height of your grinder nib. There's a set screw, so you loosen the set screw, and then slide it down about the width of glass. Now, what I've done I didn't do it on this one, but what I've done on my other grinder heads is I take fingernail polish, black fingernail polish, and I'll paint a stripe. So I can tell exactly where on the grinder head I've already used and where I can move it to, because that little black stripe shows me where I need to be.
Very clever, Cheryl.
So then just move it, tighten it back up, and there's a flat spot. There's a flat spot on your grinder, and that's where the set screw flushes up against and holds it in place.
Nice. Very clever. Yeah. So You don't need to struggle. If it's struggling, if it's not grinding,
If it's not grinding well,
adjust the
adjust the height.
thing.
Sometimes if you're grinding for a long period of time, your sponge will get full of grinder mud. Just rinse it out, and don't pour your grinder water down the sink. I have a bucket, and I pour it into the bucket, and that's where I put my grinder mud when I clean it out. So pour it into a bucket, the water will evaporate, doesn't smell like feet, and then you can do fun stuff with the dried grinder mud.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Serving Him said, wow, your grinder works so great. And Nemo said, Cheryl asks, what grit grade is your grinder bit?
You know, I get that question a lot. And I don't know, this one feels fairly coarse. It might be a 150, but you can generally buy them in 2 packs of a 150 and a 200. And that's what I will do. I'll do one or the other. Because we're going to be coating putting foil around it, it doesn't matter that I have the perfect smooth edge. So, and the coarser grinder grit will grind faster. So now, after I've ground all of my pieces, just take them out and dry them off.
And you mentioned you have a little bit of the detergent in that water for it to loosen the glue and stuff like that.
Because that will clean off any residue of the glue that we've used. And soaking it in the water helps you get the grinder dust, because you'll get grinder dust on the edges of your glass, and that will make it so your foil doesn't stick very well. So you want to make sure the edges of your glass are nice and clean and dry. All right. Ooh.
That is gorgeous.
That's pretty. That is just pretty right there. All right. So now, and I will grind all of my pieces for a project at one time. Just makes it easier. We're going to put all of these aside.
So for the sake of time, of course, you've already cut and ground all of the pieces for the orchid.
Exactly. I wanted to show you in
the tricks.
Yeah. All the tricks. You can do this, once you see the hard part. I'm showing you the hardest part, and then we'll work on the easier part. So now, did I put the 2 away? I really need to pay attention to what I'm doing. We want to keep those out. And
ta-da!
And now that I've got all of my pieces for an entire project cut, we're going to foil them. And I have brought with me today 2 sizes of foil. I recommended in the student area to use 7/32, and I've converted it to millimeters. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but on the student page, I've converted it to millimeters so you know, regardless of where you are, what size of foil you're going to use. And these are 2 different brands of foil, and you can tell one is a little bit different color than the other, but that won't matter. It's going to be covered by solder. So here is, and I think this one's probably a little bit old. You can see how it's peeling up. We'll just cut that off. Now that can be a problem or not depending on the current price of copper. I think the current price of copper is fairly high right now. Let's see. Should we break now and we can start foiling?
We can do that.
Okay, let's do that.
Perfect. All right, really quickly, let me tell you about this. So Glass Art Symposium, it's a wonderful event, right? You get to watch from today on to next Friday. And as you're watching, you can watch all day today, for example, for free. So you have all the sessions. So you can watch, if let's say you joined right now, you missed the beginning, after the end of the session, you can actually go back and watch this video again. But then you have the 2 other sessions. But let's just say you didn't have a chance, or you missed one of the sessions, or you'd like to revisit it, or better yet, you'd like to have access to the bonus goodies, like Cheryl mentioned, the downloadables that she has, like the patterns that she's making available, or the charts, the materials, like all of those goodies. If you want access to those, they're exclusive bonus goodies for folks who have purchased the symposium. So this is what I would like to invite you to do. Below the video, there is a green button. It says, get all the workshops, something like that it says. I can tell you exactly what it says. It says, get all the Symposium workshops for just get all the Symposium workshops, and then you see the green button. So here's what I'm getting at. This whole week of awesome goodness, 30 plus workshop sessions, 30 plus sessions, you can get for a very small fee, very small investment, and you get all of these workshops that you get to watch, learn from, be inspired from, all of those things that you can get for one very small fee. And you get the bonus goodies. So Cheryl has provided some downloadables, bonus downloads that you can have as a resource, such as the patterns. Some instructors have provided materials lists. Some instructors have provided extra sessions. So for example, today we have Cheryl Ferentz. She'll be teaching a session that you'll be able to watch, but then she has an additional bonus session that you'll be able to watch as well when you own the Symposium. So what I would encourage you to do is really click on that green button. If you break it down, check it out. 30 plus sessions divided by your investment, it's like, what, $4 a session? When was the last time you took a workshop for $4? Like, yeah, so it's amazing. It's a no-brainer. So here's what you do. Click on that green button. Do that right now so you don't miss out. After the end of the Symposium, the price goes up. So take advantage of the savings. And I do that right now, and I'll see you back in about 7 minutes for part 2 of this session.
Are you enjoying these workshops? We have so much more great in-depth art courses for you at curiousmondo.com, where you conquer new possibilities.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Peterson, a stained glass artist and a mentor here at Curious Mondo. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to share my knowledge and to be able to teach courses in stained glass. I've always had people ask me if I taught, and I've never had the opportunity or the space in my studio to take students. So this gives me the opportunity to share my knowledge with people all around the world and have interactions with them as they teach. I really look forward to teaching more and mentoring you on your journey into stained glass art. Please check out my classes on curiousmondo.com and join me for the next stained glass course, and check out the ones that are already available. Hi, I'm Cheryl Peterson. Join me at curiousmondo.com for the Introduction to Leaded Glass Stained Glass class. We'll be learning how to do leaded glass panels and when to choose leaded glass over regular foil method. Look at some of these panels we can do. This is what we would do for architectural installations. Leaded glass is what you would choose over regular foil method because it's flexible and can withstand pressure changes and temperature changes. There are a lot of options, and we'll be talking about what different types of lead there are, the cane that you can choose to do your patterns. There are some limitations to what you can design, but we'll talk about those things as well. We'll talk about the different tools that you use and the different cane available, and we'll also talk about lead safety because that's always a huge concern. So join me for Introduction to Leaded Glass Stained Glass at curiousmondo.com. Thank you.
What happens once you purchase the workshops?
You will get an email from Curious Mondo with instructions.
And then you just log into curiousmondo.com and enjoy it.
And we are back. Second annual Glass Art Symposium 2021. And we're in the workshop session with Cheryl Peterson, learning how to make stunning orchids. Okay, before we dive into the class, I would like to remind you of a few things. One, remember, if it says your chat is full, refresh the page, okay? In fact, you're gonna hear me talk about refreshing, reloading the page multiple times. Here's why. At the end of this session, so when this workshop, when we're all done with the orchid, so not now, it'll be in about a couple hours, right, I think. So at the end of when we complete the project and I say goodbye, I will say refresh, reload the page. And when you do that, it will then make the other daily workshops available for you. So it's super important that you do that, but you'll hear, I will give you the cue to refresh, reload the page. So I'll definitely let you know about that. Definitely that. Okay, so the other announcement that I like to make. So I talked about owning all of the symposium workshops. So every once in a while we get the question, can I just get the one session? But the short answer is no, you can't get just the one session. But for one small fee, you get all of the sessions. And there's something to be learned from all of the sessions, right? From seeing other artists at work, we totally learn and find inspiration. So I do want to let you know, for that one small fee, you can get all of the workshop sessions. When you're on the checkout page, you will see the option for the DVD add-on. You'll see it'll say, you might also be interested in, and then it has a little picture of a DVD set. So the one you're going to get, it'll say Glass Art Symposium, but you can see the delivery of the courses, they're by our sponsors, Curious Mondo. And so you will start seeing this name. If this is your first time here, you'll start seeing the Curious Mondo name a few times. And so anyways, the DVD add-on will give you a snazzy DVD set, like a chunkier than this one, but it comes with all of the workshop sessions. So typically over 10 DVDs come in there. I'll actually show you right here. I've got our Studio Ninjas, just magic before your eyes. Boom, DVD set, right? So you're gonna get something just like this. It's like nice and fat and good. So anyways, you open it up and check it out. All of the workshop sessions in here, all of them. So yes, when you own all of the sessions, when you click on that green button, you have lifetime, unlimited, anytime access to any of the workshops. So if you want to go back to a session, revisit it later, you can. If you want to watch the bonus sessions, you can. It's all inside the Curious Mondo account that you'll have. But if you like a hard copy, chunky version of the symposium, you can get the DVD add-on. You will see it as an add-on. It's not sold separately from the symposium, so you can't just get the DVD set. It comes with the symposium when you choose the add-on. And so then you'll get this at your doorstep, and you have this right here that you can just pop into the DVD player. So you have a couple options. You can get just a symposium, unlimited anytime access inside your Curious Mondo account, and as long as there's internet, you can access it from a phone, computer, or tablet. But if you also like the hard copy version of it, you can get the DVD add-on with it, and that'll give you the hard copy version that will be mailed to your doorstep. So just wanted to let you know about that. This is pretty cool. And with that, how about we get started with part 2 of our workshop on how to create stunning orchids with Cheryl Peterson. Yes!
Yay!
Here we go.
Before we start foiling, I'm going to show you an optional way to add some interest and excitement to your
More excitement? Are you kidding me? What?
I know. Can you handle
Is this even possible?
Can you handle the excitement? Okay, so the first one I made, I did the inner leaves. If you can see really closely on the first orchid, the inner leaves are painted and they're also slumped. So they're formed around a little barrel, I'll show you what I did. And all of the information you need for painting and slumping these is in the student section. So I've actually curved the leaves a little bit because I thought that looked a little bit more like real life. And it's optional. This really pretty lavender one is not. They're just flat leaves, flat petals. But the really pretty blue one has the painted and curved petals.
Ooh, so right now we're seeing the painted and curved petals.
Correct.
And in a short second, we're going to see the other one. So
Just
you get
the
the
plain
two options.
flat petals.
Yes. Ooh, and here's the plain flat one coming up. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about doing that because you have to do it before you start foiling your pieces. And I have prepared, and I even have prepared a mistake.
Oh, yay.
Yay! All right, so these are some that I pre-formed. And I made the mistake of painting them first, which if you paint them first, the color turns white.
Oh.
Because slumping is a higher temperature than your painting temperature. So you want to do the highest temperature method first. So the first thing you want to do is slump them. Yeah, you can see all of these mistakes. And I will show you, okay, so I did several experiments on how to slump. And some worked, some didn't. And in fact, what worked first didn't work the second time I tried it. Okay, the very first thing I tried was using fiber paper. And I cut a little piece of fiber paper, approximately, let's measure this for the world. The length doesn't matter, but the width was about 3/4 of an inch, which makes it 22 millimeters. And then rolled it. You might want it a little bit wider. And really, after doing this the second time, I can't figure out why it worked the first time. Okay, that's not going to be wide enough, so we want to go a little wider. And now it's almost 1.5 inches or 35 millimeters. So just roll it. And then anchor the roll with a pin. Use a straight pin, but not the kind with the little plastic end on it, because you're going to be putting this in the kiln and the plastic will melt off. And you can see this is not working. It worked the first time I tried it, and yet, but basically what you're going to do is create just a little roll and anchor it in place with the pins. If this works for you and this is all you've got, then great. It's a little bit hard to handle. Then I tried making it out of clay. The first thing I tried was air dry clay, but I wasn't happy with how it turned out. This is ceramic clay. You don't have to fire it. All you have to do is roll it into the thickness you want and let it dry. And then when you put it in your kiln, you either put kiln wash on it first, or you can cut a little piece of thin fire paper, your shelf liner, lay it down on top, and then put your unpainted glass on top of that. And you can see it doesn't fit very well. So you actually can put a drop of glue on it.
Serving Him said, Cheryl, that is a great idea, by the way.
Well, thank you. I go the extra yard for you people. Okay. And then anchor it with a little spot of glue, and then you would fill up the whole length of that. Now, the glue will burn off, so there won't be any residue. And this is just gel school glue, washable gel school glue. That worked okay, but then I thought, wait a minute, there are other options. So I took just regular chalkboard chalk, and I dipped it in kiln wash. So you can see it's got one flat side. When the kiln wash dries, you've got a flat side, so it won't roll in your kiln. And because it's kiln washed, you don't have to use the fiber paper. You can use a little spot of glue and then just lay it on top, and the piece of chalk becomes your form. And I've included the firing schedule that I used Your mileage may vary, so do some tests, find out what works before you commit yourself to the piece of glass you're going to do. Once they come out of the kiln, and you've got this really pretty piece of glass that's formed, you can now go ahead and paint it. And I chose yellow and blue and purple to do mine. Okay, come on. Apparently I'm going to have all of the pens. And I've included, you know, what kind of paint pens to use. And then just get them started. And draw in your details. Now, normally I would wait and let each color dry before I move on to the next color. But this is just demonstration, so. All right, and then I will let, you know, I'll do this to each one of my center petals, and I'll allow that to completely dry, and then this cures in your regular oven. I believe 160 centigrade or 325 Fahrenheit. So allow these to dry completely, and then put them on a baking sheet, on either a piece of foil or parchment paper. Either way, because it's not going to get hot enough that things will melt. You're just curing your paint at this point. All right. So now we have painted all of our petals, and we're going to foil. Now, the curved petals are a little bit harder to foil because you're working around a curve. So what I would do is just carefully, now I've got paint on my fingers, carefully grind all the way around the outside edge just to rough it up a little bit, because when you've put it in your kiln, it smooths out your edges, and you want to keep it a little bit rough. That'll help. You can either use 7/32 foil, and it's 5.56 millimeter. I'm using silver-backed foil because I'm leaving the silver color on the solder. You can either use this size, or if you want a little bit more of your silver to show, then you can use the bigger 1/4 inch. On the curved one, make sure you start at the point, because that is where you can see it's having a hard time. Hold it in place with your finger until you get it started to make sure it sticks. But you're working around a curve, and that it's much easier to foil flat glass than it is curved glass. But start at the point. This is where the soldering will anchor it all together, and that's where you want to bury your flap of copper foil. Gently press it in place with your fingers. And then come back with a fid. Now this is what a regular mass-produced plastic fid looks like. But I like to use a wooden clothespin. That's how I started working with glass, is using the wooden clothespin, and so that's pretty much what I'm most comfortable with. It fits in my hand, and when the wood is soft enough that you can get a nice little groove started in your wood, and then just, you have to be careful, because if your foil isn't completely stuck down, it might come up while you're burnishing it. So go very slowly. And there we have a center petal. And now I will do the kidney-shaped petal. Now there's something that you might want to do first when you're doing your kidney-shaped petal. And this will help with the structural strength. Wrap a piece of foil around that flap.
Good job, but that's boring. Okay, you're muted. You can hold on your hand.
You can use your craft knife to cut it where it's going over in a weird way. Let's see. Okay, this will just make it so that the kidney-shaped petal will have more of a solder contact point and it will be stronger. All right, so this is how we want to start. This is how the kidney will look. And then wrap foil around the rest of it like you normally would. Starting at the point where the soldering is going to be buried into how it's attached.
Okay, Cheryl, hello. We
Hi.
actually had a question come in.
Okay.
And people were actually really curious on what the paint pens are that you're using.
Oh, you know, I actually said they are listed brand name.
Are they acrylics or
Oh,
glass paints?
I have absolutely no idea. I think they might be. Hold on, I'm reading the package to see if it says.
We're finding out,
Water-based,
guys.
non-toxic, so probably not enamel. I don't know. That's all it says. But if you're looking to purchase something, it will generally say if it works on glass,
Fantastic.
and that's what you're looking for.
Fabulous.
And hi, Nick. Welcome to the program.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be your host for a moment.
I love that we're flexible here.
Very. You have to be adaptable in this business.
Well, that's part of being an artist, too.
Agreed. 100%.
Oh, yeah. I think we may have been talking about that earlier. Okay, now carefully burnish the foil down.
And we do have another question.
Okay.
Are you using fusible glass?
This is actually fusible glass. I'm not particular. If the glass is pretty and it does what I want it to do, I will use art glass, I'll use fusible glass, whatever. But this is actually 96 COE fusible glass. But I just think it's darn pretty.
It's very beautiful.
All right. Okay, so there's that. And now we'll do one of the oval piece. And I don't use a foiling machine. I always hand foil. And there's a fly who's joined us. I have only used a tabletop foiler once, and that was for a project that had hundreds and hundreds of just little rectangular pieces. So I hand foil. It's easiest for me, and I feel like I can do a good enough job getting the foil centered properly on the glass. So while I have used a tabletop foiler, I prefer not to, because it's just easier to switch from one size of foil or one color of backed foil rather than having to reload your tabletop foiler. Like I can have several rolls out at one time, you know, like I've got 2 rolls out right now. All right, and now we'll do the little teardrop petal. Again, starting at the point that's going to be soldered. Now, I know I'm going a little fast, but the beauty of it is you can always pause while you're working on your project until you catch up and then go on to the next step. So we're just basically hitting the highlights here. This one got a little weird on me. Okay, hold on. Now, just because this doesn't stick in the first place, don't freak out. When you overlap it, those two will anchor the foil in place. Heating up the foil actually affects the adhesive on the back. It's not as strong. So what you're actually doing is creating a little metal frame, and that adhesive on the back of your foil becomes less important.
So I actually have a question about the foil
Uh-huh.
for people that may not know. Does the adhesive on the foil have a shelf life?
Apparently it does. When you buy your, I'm using some really old rolls of foil because I keep getting it in, people are getting out of the business or just getting rid of their stuff, so I keep getting old foil. And it does lose its stick, but sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the quality of the foil. So when you store it, always store it in a plastic bag, airtight plastic bag, which I've put away, and in a cool, dry place. And that will improve the shelf life of your foil, the natural shelf life. All right, so we're all done with that. And now we are going to tin the edges.
And while we're starting that, Teresa Duncan actually has a question for you.
Okay.
Can you fire art glass to a slumping temperature without it changing the color of the glass?
That depends. You're going to have to test. So a couple of things to keep in mind if you're slumping art glass. Whites are very, very hard. They won't slump easily, so you either have to increase your temperature or your time. I've made some fused projects with white or light colored art glass that the edges just never got smooth. It never ever moved. So art glass that is modeled, the ring metal art glass, you'll lose the pattern completely if you fuse it. And there are certain reds that will go brown. So test, always test.
Test out, guys.
I think that's the answer to everything. Test, always test.
I agree. I think as artists, that's one of the big things in our journeys.
You'll have an entire project, a box full of tests that went horribly wrong or went, horribly well. All right, so we're going to tin every one of our pieces, and I am using liquid flux. It's going to be a little bit easier to clean up in the cleanup process because this is a three-dimensional piece. You've got a lot of nooks and crannies, so if you're using like a gel flux or a paste flux, it's going to get down into those nooks and crannies and be really hard to clean out. So I'm going to be using liquid flux. Only squeeze out as much as you're going to use because you can't put it back in the bottle when you're done, and you don't want to waste it. So just use a little bit. And safety. Flux is caustic, not toxic. So wear long sleeves, don't get it on your skin, it can cause a rash. I have found that I've developed an allergy to this, and I'll get stuffed up in my nose will run. I'm soldering with, and it's not all gel fluxes, liquid fluxes, it's this particular brand. So if you're worried about the fumes, just put a little fan in front of you facing the opposite direction. It will draw the fumes away. And solder. We're going to use 50-50. In the student section, I put 60-40. You can use whichever you're most comfortable with. 50-50 will set up more quickly, and that's why I like to use it on three-dimensional projects. Handling lead. You see my hands are in contact with the lead. This is not going to make me sick because it doesn't soak through your skin. The way you get lead poisoning is through ingesting it. So when you're working with lead, don't be eating, don't be drinking anything. And as soon as you're finished, wash up. Probably even change your clothes. It just depends on how long you've been working. But I've been doing this for a long time. I periodically will have a blood test to check my lead levels, and I've never had a problem. So just make sure you don't put your hand to your mouth. If you're a smoker, don't smoke while you're working. And always wash your hands. So that's the secret.
Great advice to follow.
Yes. All right. Now, because I'm going to be handling, my hands will be directly on the flux. I'm going to wear gloves just to protect my hands. And this will also help protect me from the heat. So these aren't heat-resistant gloves. They are actually, this coating will wear away. The solder, the flux will eat away at it because the flux is acidic. And this is just a craft brush that I've trimmed down. I have my soldering iron set at regular temperature. I believe solder melts between 375 and 400. So mine doesn't have a temperature gauge, it has numbers, so the numbers don't actually mean anything. It's just nice. Here, I'm at number 7 right, oh no, I'm at number 70 right now.
Oh, this is my favorite part, just watching it go on like butter.
Right? And there's a joke about solder. If it looks like it's cool, it's not. So just put a little bit on your tip. If for any reason the solder's not sticking, you can reflux.
And we have a question from Renee.
Uh-huh.
Hey Cheryl, I see that you are burnishing the top and bottom of your glass pieces. Do you burnish the edge?
I sometimes do. I'm a little lazy about burnishing the edge. I know I should, and yet I get going really fast and forget to.
We just get so wrapped up in what we're doing.
I know.
Sometimes we forget.
I'm so excited that I just can't stop. Okay, this happened before. Like I mentioned, these aren't heat resistant, but I managed to get them off before the solder. The solder has burned me through these gloves before.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think I still have the scar. Let's check.
Like I've got my cup of water at the ready
just
if
throw
we
it out.
need.
Should have a fire extinguisher ready for me. Oh,
We do.
I'm sure. I know I've got them in my shop. It's just I think, well, if my kiln starts on fire, my fire extinguisher is on the other side of the kiln. Will I be able to get to it? So I prefer just not to think about it. If you get these little balls of solder, wait until they're cool. Those definitely are not cool yet. Wait until they're cool and collect them in a little jar. You will love having a little jar of solder balls. They'll be useful.
I'm actually curious again, for those little solder balls that you just formed, can you use those as decorative elements in your pieces like with silversmithing?
You know, no, because when they heat up, they will flatten out. You can do decorative solder, but you have to do it intentionally. Now, some gifted people, whom I am not, are actually able to get a nice little solder bead when they're tinning like this. I have not mastered that yet. It usually flattens out on me. If you're trying to get a perfect little half-round bead there and it's not working, you know what? Don't fight it. Just do the best you can and move on. I was working with another artist who fussed and fussed and fussed over trying to get the perfect bead on the edge. And that can be a detriment because as long as you're running heat along the edge of that foil, before you get that nice solder metal frame around it, that foil can come unstuck. And it's just a nightmare. So don't don't get stuck on the little details that, probably might only matter to you. And then finally, the little concaved one. And I usually keep a small chunk of wall board around just for doing these kind of chores on, because it's nicer to wear out a small piece of sheetrock than to mess up your whole entire board.
Wise words.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have all of our, you know what? I didn't do the extra piece on this one. I'm going to see if I can add. If I can find my end. There it is. Generally, once you've soldered something, there's going to be a residue of oil from your flux, and nothing will stick once that residue has started to build up. So if I can get that, oh, see, because I'm telling you about it, it's sticking. If I was doing this at home.
Of course, it's just got to keep you on your toes,
I know,
right?
Watch what happens live.
Watch me get through this process perfectly.
Exactly. Okay. Let's hope that works.
My fingers are crossed for you.
Thank you. Oh, the back fell off, but that's okay. The front stayed on. That will be enough for us. Hey, really, okay, so my workshop at home gets this messy. I've got stuff everywhere. Periodically, I have to clean up and start over again. All right, well, now we have all the pieces we need to make an orchid. We're going to assemble this orchid.
The very exciting part.
Yay! Okay, now, because I've done three-dimensional, and you'll notice if you look at the orchids I've already made very carefully, I've tried to make them as realistic as possible. So what we've got going on here is the back leaves tilt back, the kidney-shaped leaves are tilted in a tiny bit, and then you've got the inner petals, why am I calling them leaves? The inner petals standing almost straight up. I'm going to show you an easy way to make that happen. I mixed up salt dough. If you ever made salt dough as a kid, you can make your own, or you can just buy the kind at the toy store. And I'm putting it on a small square of paper because I want to be able to move it around as I'm soldering. So I've got a tiny little dome of dough. Yay. And the dough is just sticky enough that I can, hold on, I'm looking to see what I'm doing here. Okay. Okay. Now you'll notice there is a gap in that center. Two things. We're going to want to leave a gap in that center. If you don't feel confident enough in your soldering skills, this is just a cooking skewer. Stick that little skewer right down in there, and it will keep that hole going. And we're going to use that hole as the stem and the inside of the flower.
This is genius, and I feel like I'm going to do my first button push now because this was a super.
This is such a wow moment. All right. So now carefully. We're going to tack these corners, and you can see a little bit of solder has run down the edge. That's okay. That's not going to be a problem. Okay, don't need those scissors, so that's all. I'm like a bull in a china shop today. All right, so here is our base layer. Right? Now we're going to add the kidneys, and they will be formed. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. I've actually included a diagram as to what direction each one of the petals should be placed. Okay.
Oh, good.
So now the kidneys are going to go like so. Be nice to have extra hands at this point, but I normally don't, so I'm going to show you how you can fake it. Get a little bit of solder on the tip of your iron and start tacking it in place. Now, we're going to tip it and tack it in this spot. We see, this is where we need to tack the back side as well. This is all about support. This is fighting gravity, and we've got to do everything we can to counteract gravity. If you've ever made a succulent, this is a very similar process. I think I may have changed my mind just a little bit. I want to reposition that a tiny, tiny bit. Let's see if I can. Be careful with doing something like that, because if you get it hot and it pulls the foil away from your glass, then you have to stop, clean your glass, refoil it, and like I mentioned, once you've foiled it, once you've soldered it, that the residue of the oil from your solder won't stick. Your foil won't stick. So at this point, you don't want to have to stop and refoil a piece. We're committed now.
Oh, I just love that. You made this look so easy.
It really isn't that hard. It just looks so incredibly magical that you wow people and they have no idea that, well, that's all I did.
That was me this morning. I was quite wowed by all of the
And now you're
projects.
going, oh, that's no big deal. She's a hack. No. Kidding. Okay, I'm building up more solder around here because these two leaves are the most delicate, most likely to come unattached. So you want to get them, you want to get a nice solid base of solder, holding them in place and tacking them to the leaves behind them. You will not regret taking the extra time. Okay, so here we have almost an orchid.
That needs an ooh la la, I think. Ooh la la.
All right, now we're going to put the final leaves together. All right. This is the, let's see, spade shape. Is that what we want to call it? And that goes down in the bottom on the center. Make sure you hold on to it until the solder sets up. It's another reason we're using 50-50 is because it sets up more quickly than 60-40. It's not as shiny when it cools, but that's okay. It's so much easier to work with. And now we'll put the teardrops in. Okay, so my finger's cramping. This is like
Relax your hands, relax your hands.
Yeah, I think I've developed trigger finger over the years.
Oh no.
It's like every now and then it will cramp up and I can't move it. I have to wait until the cramps resolve itself.
The artist badge of honor, right?
Yeah, if your hands look like they're gnarled and twisted, you've done something right. Somebody was asking me about the bump on my middle finger. I've had that bump all my life because I started drawing very young.
I was going to say, I think I have the same bump from drawing and holding my pencil like a crazy person.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and people don't normally, I don't know if they notice it and they just don't mention it, thank goodness, but somebody asked me about it recently, like, well, I've been drawing all my life.
Another question that I'm a little curious on.
Yes.
While you're doing these three-dimensional things, is there a specific amount of weight that you need to watch out for with the tin solder? Like, can petals become too heavy for the tin solder to hold?
Yes, but you can account for that by just either adding more solder points or building up behind it.
Okay.
So these are fairly heavy petals, but we're building up and we're giving it a lot of support. So it's almost like we've got a blob of solder and we have melted it and then just stuck the petals in.
Wonderful.
Okay, and then just come back in your little gaps, add a little solder. You won't regret it. Okay, this one, that one feels a little bit not strong enough right now. So I'm going to add some more. Yeah, there's some more places I could solder. So what I'm doing here, this is what I was talking about, adding more solder points. I'm going farther up the edge of the petal and then farther along the edge of the petal next to it. That will create extra strength. You won't regret using a lot of solder. Okay, that feels better. Let's do the same thing along the other side. Now, this is something you can use those little solder balls for. Just pick them up with your iron. All right. And carefully detach it from the clay. And some clay will stick to the back. We'll clean that up in a bit. Okay. Now we have, but you can see we've got that little hole in the middle.
Stunning. It's so stunning.
Seriously, the magic is just gone.
I'm going to cry about it. So good.
Okay, now we're taking 14 gauge pre-tinned copper wire. If you don't have pre-tinned wire, but you have copper wire, you can tin it yourself, but it's a pain. So this will not only be like the stamen, it will also be a support in the back. And I'm going to show you how to build that back support. Okay, so I just made a loop. And I will bend, let's see. So essentially, it's like one loop of a spring.
And this is the seat for the flower, correct?
Right, this is, okay, so here's what it's going to look like in the back. Okay. And we are going to solder that into place.
And really quickly, we have a question from Laura.
Okay.
Cheryl, sometimes my iron will not pick up the solder ball. Does that mean my iron is too hot?
No, it means the solder ball's too big. So just, you can divide it or pick up a portion of the solder ball. But generally, it's like gravity. If the solder ball is too big, your iron won't pick it up.
Wonderful. And then a comment from Christy. The fine detail of the paint really makes this pop, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice touch.
It definitely brings in some of that realism to them.
Right. Yeah, and that was kind of my thought when I was putting it together, was I want it to look as realistic as possible. And apparently, with as many people as I fooled.
An artist after my own heart.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I like realism. For some reason, I just don't understand. Yeah, no, I like realism. In art history class, when you go through the Picasso and stuff like that, it's like, well, it's nice, but I respect what he's trying to do. It's just not going to hang over my sofa anytime soon. Okay, now I've carefully just built up all the way around. All right, let's take a good look at that. And you see how I've got it built up all the way around.
And then Tracy had a question.
Uh-huh.
She was just wondering, what kind of wire was that again?
This is 14 gauge pre-tinned copper wire. I actually buy it from an electrical supply store. Okay, now we're going to make the stamen. I'm assuming it's the stamen. So we'll just trim this down.
Bye.
Bye. And carefully twist it over. So basically I made a loop. I can squeeze it a little tighter with my flat pliers. Form it where I want it to be. Okay, so now there's your little stamen.
Amazing. I am just loving this. I am loving
Isn't this
watching
fun?
this come together. It
This
is
so
so
much fun.
spectacular.
Okay, and now we're going to fill in the rest of that little hole with solder. Filling this in with solder, it's going to give it more support. That's all we need. Hold on. This will work. Hold on. There we go. Everything's a tool if you do it right.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, I'm just filling in the rest of that little tunnel that we created with the cooking skewer.
And that's really just going to bring more solidarity to the piece, correct?
Correct. Correct. All right. And we're done.
Ugh.
But now we have to clean off, we have to clean up the flux, and that's probably one of the more important steps, because if you don't get all your flux cleaned up, hold on, let me get a towel, yeah. If you don't get all your flux cleaned up, you'll get white mold, this icky white residue, and we don't want that. So the thing to know about flux, it is oily and acidic. So what we need to do is cut the oil, cut the greasy oil, and neutralize the acid. Now this is a wonderful one-step, no water cleaner that I use when we're here doing, demonstrations like this, because it's easier than just, we can't wash it in the sink. Or I have a little mixture of, this is the blue grease-cutting dishwashing soap. I will fill this with water, put in a squirt of soap, and about a tablespoon and a half of baking soda. So baking soda will neutralize the acid, and the dish soap cuts the grease. So even though we have reinforced this within an inch of its life, it is still pretty delicate. So while we're cleaning it off, we need to be careful. All right. Well, there's that. How much time?
Spectacular. I think actually right now might be a good time to go into the break.
Okay. I might not have time. Let's see. No, I'll show you how to make, in the next section, I'll show you how to make the leaves, and then we'll put the whole thing together.
Awesome. Sounds
right.
wonderful.
Great.
Oh, wow, you guys. I love watching this come together. This is such a fantastic project. And honestly, if you haven't picked up the Symposium yet, I would highly recommend it. Right now it's 30% off. It's $97 for 25 plus artists. You get the entire Symposium, the chats, the bonuses. You get all of those cool things to help you on your glass journey. So I would definitely recommend grabbing the course if you haven't already. Let's see. I think we're just going to head into our quick little break, and we will be back here in 7-10 minutes.
Possibilities.
Don't forget that you can get all these workshops involved in the Symposium for a very special price while we are live. The workshops are not sold separately, and there are over 30 workshops just for you.
Just click on that green button, don't forget.
Don't forget to get your art supplies at artmakersmakery.com, where your creativity gets wings. Woo!
Are you enjoying these workshops? There's more for you. Great in-depth courses at curiousmondo.com, where you conquer new possibilities.
Did you know that you can add a DVD set with all of the workshop sessions?
It's over 11 DVDs with all sessions.
All you have to do is click Add DVD on the checkout page. But remember that the DVDs are not sold separately, so you'll want to buy them at checkout.
I think we're going. Hi guys, welcome back to Curious Mondo. We are on class number 3 with Cheryl Peterson on making a glass orchid, a stunning glass orchid. We still have a lot to get through with this class and this project, so what do you say we just dive right back in, you guys?
Yes, because we want to get finished and there's still a lot to cover. I will go a little bit quickly, so take quick notes. All right, now we're going to make one of the leaves. And we're going to use our salt dough again to make the leaf form. Now, you don't have to make your leaves leaf-shaped, but it's kind of an extra nice touch. So now you're going to have that little itty-bitty leaf shape. Now, I haven't tinned these yet. If I was in my studio, I would make sure these were tinned. And we're putting the texture side down, laying them together and just kind of putting them in place. Now, we're going to use the 14 gauge wire again, and I didn't mention the reason we're using 14 gauge is because it is stiffer and stronger, and these flowers weigh a ton. And so we want to use the heavy gauged wire as much as we can because that will help support the whole thing. Okay, now, and I've learned this trick along the way. When I need to straighten out my wire, put on a pair of gloves.
Yes.
And then, oh, Nick probably knows about this, straightening wire.
I sure do.
Yeah, okay, put on a pair of gloves, and then that makes it easier to straighten the wire. What we're going to do, this is the stem, but the stem goes all the way up the leaf because it's going to be our reinforcement for the leaf.
So we did have a question come in.
Okay.
Terry is actually curious if these paint pens can be cured with the heat of an oven or microwave.
I don't know about a microwave, but I cure them with an oven.
Yeah, oven.
Yeah, I'm still not brave enough to even try a microwave kiln because it's like, seriously, I don't know. But follow the instructions. Whatever kind of paint pen you buy, follow the instructions carefully. One of the secrets is you put them in to a cold oven, heat up to your temperature, then do your time, and then just turn the oven off and let it cool down completely on its own. So it's very kiln-like in how you're treating it. But you don't have to worry about thermal shocking your glass accidentally. Okay, so we've got the wire in that gap that was created by putting the two pieces together at an angle. And now I'm just filling it up. This is as close as we're going to get to a regular soldering line in this project.
I don't know why I find the sizzling so satisfying.
If it's popping, you might not be as satisfied. The sizzle's not so bad, but if you get too much flux, it can pop. Somehow these little air gaps cause the flux to pop. All right, just take it off. And now we want to do the inside. Ah, see, you get the pop and sputter on your second side more often than... It sounds like a sizzling steak.
It does. Or the fajitas I ordered yesterday.
Oh, yes. When they bring it out on that hot...
Yeah.
Yes. It's exactly,
That must be why I find
that
it
is
so satisfying.
exactly what it sounds like. Okay. Now, we're a little crunched for time, so I'm not going to tin the outside edge, but I have these leaves already made. And you can see the outside edges are tinned. And they're already put together, ready to go. So this is what the leaf will look like when you're done. And then finally, the buds. We're going to use 16 gauge wire just because 14 is so heavy and these are so small. I'm going to show you how to make one bud and then we'll move on because I want to start putting this thing together. Don't you?
Oh yes, I'm really excited to see that happen.
Okay, we're going to attach the stem to the back side. So this is our front side. Just join them together. Flip it over. And then just bury that wire like so. And voila. Ooh, hot. The wire gets hot. So here we have one of our buds. This is the large bud. You can see the wire is just... Now this is a cool, if you're making a project and you want leaves that aren't in the panel but are in front of the panel, you could just make a bunch of leaves like this and then attach them using the wires. So very cool.
And Heather actually has a question for you.
Okay.
What fairs are you going to be at this next year?
Well, I've got 2 holiday fairs coming up. An open house at my home in November, and then up at the University of Utah, they have an arboretum that has a lot of special events, and they're having a holiday fair there in December.
Fabulous.
So that's the rest of my year, and then I actually get online orders at Christmas time quite often, so it's going to be a busy year. All right, now, okay, let's talk about preparing the pot. Now, I wanted to make a really, really big one using all of my flowers, and like I mentioned, it's really top heavy. So I made one pot and I filled it full of concrete. And this pot is just filled with plaster Paris. It's much lighter. Concrete pot, not light at all. So your pot is going to be your counterbalance. And whatever you do with your leaves, this is the counterbalance. And in the student section, I have a step-by-step how I made the pot. And what I have in the pot is, these are just bubble tea straws, okay? And that's where we're going to put our stem. Now I've put in an extra straw, just regular straw, just in case, because if for any reason we put the stem in and then there's not room for our leaves, well, we've got some place to put the leaves. We might not use it, but we might. So what you do is you create your pot, make sure you cover the hole in the bottom with tape so that your concrete or plaster Paris doesn't leak out, and tape your straws together and tape the bottoms of the straws closed too, because you don't want your plaster Paris or concrete to leak up. So,
Smart.
yeah. So I've got a whole step-by-step process of how that's done. And we're going to put that aside. Like, okay, in my shop at home, this is literally how everything looks. It's just a mess. For our stem, we're using 1/4-inch copper tubing. It's refrigerant tubing. There are all sorts of uses for it. You get it in the plumbing section of your local hardware store. Now, based on how high you want your stem, or how long you want your stem, and you remember it's going to bend over a little bit, so cut off a bunch. You can always trim it. I think I waste a lot of this, but that's going to be our stem. Thing to know about copper is it's a lot harder to get solder to adhere to copper directly. Copper foil, it works fine, but copper pipes and tubing, it's more of a challenge. Secret. This is just steel wool, 4x0 steel wool. Clean off your copper, because you know, as it sits around, it starts to get tarnish. Thank you. God, I can't think of the word. Not patina. It will start to tarnish over time. And this, you know, it will go dark as your flower gets older, which is great, but you want to clean off all the tarnish. Now, I think we're going to do a three blossom. Okay. We're going to mark about where we're going to attach the blossoms. So here we have some that I have already made. And here are my buds. So we know that the buds will be attached to the very end. And I think we want to attach one blossom here. And then another blossom here. And then the final blossom probably the same distance down. Okay, so you can see I have marked, this is where I'm going to solder the stems of the blossoms on.
The fun part.
Oh yeah, it's just it's such a process. And working with copper like brass, it absorbs the heat. So the heat from your soldering iron will heat up the copper, and it's going to get hot and uncomfortable. Okay, we are going to tin our copper. And when you're tinning, turn your iron all the way up to the highest temperature. And it's going to get hot, so you'll probably end up having to put more flux on. And again, we're using 50-50 now, but when you're tinning something like this, you could use 60-40, and that would just be fine. Now, this is something I just learned. See where the line of the marker was? Nothing sticks to that. So you can actually use that if you have a barrier you don't want your solder to go past. You can put a marker line down, and it will actually stop your...
That is the craziest thing ever.
I know, isn't that wild?
Yes.
I had read about it and I went, oh, whatever. And then I tried it and went, oh, whatever.
The power of markers, I guess.
Exactly. I don't know, some chemical in the marker. We might as well use it to our advantage. And I'm tinning the end because this is where the little buds will go. At this point, everything is going to be awkward to handle. So just, go slow, be patient. Oh, that's that piece of foil that didn't stick. It's coming back to haunt me. And go all the way around. You could technically tin this whole entire thing so that you don't see any copper at all, that it's all silver. But once you've put this layer of solder on the copper pipe, the tubing isn't as flexible. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's going to be a lot more rigid where you've got your solder.
I do think that's quite funny. I just always think of tin as being such a malleable metal.
Right? But tin is a metal, tin is a process, no. And we're doing this because it will make it a lot easier to attach the wires. Putting this tinning down gives the wire, the solder, when we put the wires on it, it will give them someplace to sit. Okay. You ready for the magic? I mean, this is where all the excitement starts. Now first we have to make our cute little lifelike buds. So I want to attach the big one to the small one in a cute sort of way.
Obviously, it needs to be a cute sort of way.
Right? It's the fact that I'm using the word cute. I don't know. And I would definitely wear gloves during this process because things get hot and uncomfortable really fast. And when you're soldering something like this, and you've already got one solder connection, don't start soldering there again. Go a little farther up. Because if you heat this up, then the wires will come apart. Let it set up. And flip it over. See what we've got going on back here. Do a little more solder. And believe it or not, this is exactly, you know, I'm losing things, misplacing things, chasing stuff around my work table. All right, and I'm going to trim this down a little bit. And now we will attach it to the end. Okay, now we have to be really careful because the heated solder turns liquid and may, hold on, and it may melt and then the two stems of the buds fall apart. It's just, everything is so delicate. Oh, I think I'm doing a right-hand twist instead of a left-hand twist this time. Okay, plan ahead.
Shaking it up for us.
Exactly.
And you're attaching these to the end that you cut with the pliers, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Okay, now we're going to come up to the other end. So I tacked it on one end, and now I'm going to start soldering at the other end so that it doesn't come apart, because the liquid hot solder will, you'll lose, just like that.
What?
Okay, so that's what we're trying to avoid.
That happened so suddenly.
I know, right? Well, because the whole entire, and it's because the copper is so hot. All of that solder turned to liquid all at once. So you have to be very careful. Come on, come on. Well, that's not pretty. Okay. I fail so you don't have to.
That is so kind of you.
Taking one for the team.
Ooh.
Seriously, I'm just going to give up. It's going to be an ugly attachment. Now, what you could try and do is take a smaller gauge wire and lash it together, and that would probably solve this problem that we're having. Okay, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to walk away.
There you go. You got to listen to your advice.
Got to walk
away.
away. Just walk away. Okay, so now we're going to attach the flowers. What we want to do, about an inch, which is what, 2.3 centimeters. We're going to bend, and that's where we're going to bend the stem. Okay? And let's see, I bent it the wrong way. Okay. And then trim it to about the same distance, an inch, 2.3 centimeters. So we have this L, we have an L bend in the stem. And we're going to attach it where we made that mark. Okay, wait till it cools.
Lovely.
Isn't that pretty?
It's so beautiful.
And easier than anybody thought. Okay. And my needle nose pliers disappear on me. It's all right. Oh no, there they are. I wasn't even using them apparently. This is what live demonstrations are all about.
It really is. It's so true.
Winging it. Okay, so this one. Nope. Now we're going to attach this one, and it might get kind of awkward here. You may have to make a few adjustments. And I don't know, can you see how I've got the wire just laid right along the edge of the copper tubing? Did anybody notice if I flux that or not? Is anybody paying attention to what I'm doing here? And then just solder all along the edge of the wire. And now we have two.
2 down. Oh, it's coming along so great.
Okay, and at this rate, we might have room for 4. We're winging it.
We are. No set plan. We're just going for it.
That's right. We're just letting the art take us.
Which is the truest form.
Right?
So.
Absolutely. Let the project decide. Okay, now I haven't tinned that part. I'm going to do a quick tinning. And this just gives our solder something to grab onto.
So we had a question come in from Stephanie, and I believe it is in reference to the buds that you put at the end of your copper tube.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be easier to put the copper wires into the tube and flatten the tube afterwards?
Yes, it would, and I don't always do things the easiest way. We have learned this about me. It's like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Like to take the hard route.
Exactly. Okay, look, we have room for another one, so we're going to put a bonus. Normally, I would stick with odd numbers, but we have space, we've got room. We're going to put that baby on there. I'll probably hate that I did this. Let's go this direction. Okay. We're going the opposite direction now. Okay. Don't be afraid to, move that wire around so that it's easier to attach. We're going to reposition them later.
I also really love how big and spread out these flowers are. They really do a good job at hiding those stems underneath.
Exactly. Unless it's going to be viewed from 300, a 360 view, you can hide a lot of the construction. Okay.
Ugh. Stunning, you guys, just
Isn't that
stunning.
pretty? Okay, so now we've got to clean off our solder. I mean, not clean off our solder, clean off our flux. I'm going to use my spray again just because it's easier. We don't have to clean the whole thing, just where there was flux. And, okay, I love, these are flour sacking towels. I have dozens of them from my mother. These are the best towels for drying dishes. And I love using them on my projects because I don't go through, that way I'm not using paper towels for everything. And all I have to do is throw them in the wash and they clean up. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm very ready.
Okay.
Been ready.
So now you can see that is so top heavy. So we're going to bend it a little bit and see if we can counteract the top heaviness. Sorry, and I'm trying to bend this part and it's not bending. So, because it's got the solder on it, and that's exactly like I mentioned. Once you solder it, you lose the flexibility. So we'll trim. There, okay.
And we actually do have a question that came in from Joe Rebecca.
Okay.
What is the lowest melting solder for stained glass?
I think 60-40 is the lowest melting point. That's the best flow that I've worked with. Okay. What do you think? Beautiful?
Yes.
You're not sure you had to check?
I am
Okay.
like speechless at a loss for words because I love them so much.
I don't know what to say. Okay, so now we have room for the leaves, which is awesome. We're gonna put the leaves in. And I thought it was a lot more interesting to have an odd number of leaves and different sizes. Okay, that's good, I like that. Okay, let's move all my stuff out of the way. Now we're going to put in some rocks, some bark, a little floral.
The embellishments.
Exactly.
My favorite part.
Because we want to make this look fabulous. And I can turn off my soldering iron now. Yay. This is heavy-duty white craft glue. I think you can use sticky glue, whatever. And I'm putting the bottom down before I glue my leaves and stuff into place, because it's easier if I can just move my leaves around. So I've got a good coating of glue, and now I'm just going to design. I'm going to have some fun. Now, choose the size of pot you use based on how many flowers, the weight of the upper portion, and I think you'll be fine. But just keep in mind how you're going to end up and plan accordingly. And this is actually orchid bark. I had to buy some for my orchids, so I thought I would share.
You got to tie it in there, right? They're orchids.
Exactly.
And Jen Moore is actually wondering, do you teach classes in person, and where if you do?
I do not. My little studio is not set up to handle, I have taught like one person and two people, and it was really, really difficult. So these are the only classes I teach.
So what I'm hearing is not yet.
Not, well, I never say never, because things could change. And, you know, I might have an opportunity to teach in person, like at somebody else's studio. That would be an option. But so far, no. This is the only teaching I do is here. Okay, kind of cool. I like it.
I'm loving it.
All right, now one little thing you might want to do, because even though you put glue down this little tube that you've got everything coming out of, it might be kind of helpful to just put a tiny bit of sand down there to help keep everything in place, because I've found that the glue does and does not hold. Even this incredible heavy-duty craft glue, because you've got so much weight putting pressure on it that it can not work. Okay. Brand new package of sand.
It's got to give you a little trouble.
I know, right?
And while you're doing that, Sandy was actually curious, were the straws oiled to remove from the base?
Or the what? Huh?
The
What?
straws in your concrete?
No, I don't remove them. I just
You
cut
just
them down.
clipped them.
Yeah, because you need to keep a hole. You know, you need to make a hole in your concrete base. Okay, so what I'm doing, I've got a little funnel here, and I'm just carefully pouring. This is craft sand, and I'm just filling up the rest of that straw. And the reason I put 2 straws in is because if, for whatever reason, there's not enough room in the big straw for everything you're putting in there, you've got the other straw as a backup. You don't have to use it, but if you need it and you can't put another hole in your concrete. So it's good to have one that you're not going to use rather than not enough. Yeah.
It's always better to have it and not need it
Yes.
than need it and not have it.
exactly. Okay, so now I've filled it up with the sand. Okay, you know what? I actually like this. I like this. So now I'm going to take the craft glue and just kind of put a little sealing plug in the very top. Now this glue does dry clear, but we can obscure it with a piece of bark. There.
Fabulous.
So now nobody's going to see it.
Wonderful.
Final thing. You might want to polish. Now, normally I would use wax, but 3-dimensional projects are really hard to polish. So in this case, we're going to use, I brought it, it's here. Okay, we're going to use furniture polish. So you can get either lemon oil, this is orange oil. So when I polish something with this, people go, it smells so nice.
Even better.
It smells like oranges. Why does it? Wait, okay.
Just bringing more of that realism into the piece.
Exactly. It's a flower. It smells like something nice. And then just take, you know, with your little cotton swab and just go in and kind of wipe around. And that's how you'll polish the piece. And if you get it on your glass and need to wipe it off, just take your soft cloth. I know we did all we could to get the oil off the glass, and now we're putting oil back on it. And, okay, I'm going to turn this away from you while I organize my flowers. Okay. And
I'm blown away, you guys. I'm blown away. This is just
is this fun? Okay.
stunning.
And like I said, people come into my house and they don't realize that it's not real. So we've actually done what we were planning on doing. All right, this
and Laura
is.
R. actually says, this is perfect because I cannot keep orchids alive.
Oh, I know. I'm working on finally getting one to re-bloom.
Oh, are
and
you?
I think it might. It actually
Fabulous.
looks like it's growing a new stem. So there we go. And that's it.
Wow.
Isn't this fun?
You really made this whole process look so easy and amazingly fun.
Right.
It yields such a beautiful piece, in my opinion.
And I think that's what, I mean, that's the best part about it is it looks so elegant and so difficult that people will be stunned and amazed and you go, oh, it's so easy.
It's perfect.
Oh,
I just can't get over the color choices and everything. It's a absolutely
right.
hands
And
down beautiful
like I said,
piece.
you can totally use scrap glass. You don't need to get any special glass if you don't want to. And just go to town, be creative, make it, you know, whatever you want.
You're really making me want to start glass art, and
'Cause you
the
need
last
yet another
thing I
vacation,
need in my
right?
life is another project to be working on.
Well,
But,
it's a lot of fun and easier than you think.
well, I know what I'm going to be doing in my off time sometime soon. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for showing us how to do this awesome project.
Absolutely. It's been a joy being here.
It's always such a pleasure to watch you work. You make everything just look
Thank you.
effortless and easy breezy.
Okay, you're making me blush.
Oh, that's my job.
Awesome, awesome.
All right, and we have a couple comments for you.
Okay.
Hands clapping, awesome. This is the most real and beautiful flower I've ever seen. So beautiful. Thank you for coming in. This was a fabulous class. You've got quite a list of fantastic comments from people.
Thank you, everybody. I love that being able to teach these courses stretches me as an artist to find something new and exciting to do. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Get a good look at it, you guys, and then we will wrap it up for today. Thank you guys for joining us here with Cheryl Peterson on how to create this beautiful orchid flower. Don't forget, we've got a bunch of other artists coming up throughout the day and throughout the week. For the page, if you can't access the video, just remember to refresh your page, and you should then have access to all of the other artists that are participating in the symposium today. Remember, this class was jam-packed and full of information, so if you guys haven't purchased the symposium just yet, now might be a good chance to get it. It's 30% off while the symposium is live, so it's an amazing deal, and you get 25 plus artists that are all doing awesome, really cool, fun projects. So I would definitely recommend getting it. Don't forget that we also have the DVD add-ons. You can pick that option at checkout, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Well, I probably won't see you back here. I'll see you on Monday. But there are plenty of more artists coming throughout the weekend, and I hope you guys enjoy them. See you later.
Welcome, Curious Mondo family. It's really a pleasure to have you here with us during our live broadcast. We really appreciate that. You know, every class for us is really an adventure, and we love the hard work we put into making this possible for you. But I need you to remember that copying, screenshotting, recording, or sharing a course that you bought is actually piracy, which is a crime. But what's really important here is for you to understand that every time you do that, you're damaging not only us as a company, but the instructors as well, because we all rely on this format to make a living. So be very careful if somebody approaches you and asks you to share your course and let them go inside and see. Actually, you can even contact us if that happens, because we really need to protect what we have. You know, it's extra risky for us to come live and free every day to the whole world. We know the possibilities of people stealing our content, so we rely on you to protect us as well. So make sure you don't record and you don't share courses that you bought, but most of all, if you know that people are committing this crime, please let us know, because protecting all of us, this format, will allow us to keep going for a very long time. Thank you so much for being part of our family.